What is going on, my friends? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to, I want to say, episode 10 of building a K24 all-wheel drive Civic Type R, FK8 Civic Type R. So what we're gonna try and get done today is mounting that guy. It's sitting up kind of where we want it to sit. Of course, there's gonna be some adjustments that are made, but I can't really do much more progress, and I can't make much more progress until we get the engine and trans and transfer case in the car, and then that will give us a good rough idea of where the rear diff is gonna sit. Talked to a few different people. It sounds like we want just a tiny angle on the driveline from the T-case output to the input of the rear diff. You don't want it 100% straight, apparently. I did not know that. So without further ado, let's go ahead and install the entire power plant and drivetrain. All right, so right off the bat, I can already tell there's no way a drive shaft is gonna fit in here without pulling a bunch of stuff off. So we don't need this, we don't need that, we don't need that brace. Yeah, that guy there is just spot welded on. We don't need that. And then this guy is also in the way, which means some of these brake line may be in the way as well. So let's just pop some of this stuff off real quick, get these heat shields out of here, and then we can grab, I need to find a good way to remove spot welds. I've never really found a good way because I don't want to do any painting underneath if I don't need to. I've seen a few people online use like a belt sander to get them off, but I don't have one. I don't feel like buying one. So I will resort, if I can get it out, to a drill bit. Well, boys, I definitely don't know what I'm doing when it comes to spot welds. So we do have some holes to patch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 holes to patch. But now we got all the space in the world right here. This guy, thankfully, is not spot welded in. This guy is gonna get lopped out. But I don't think I'm gonna cut it yet until we see how much we need to cut. So here we have our drive line or drive shaft. And it does need to be a little bit longer. It's heavy. I need to find a good way to set that up in the car. I almost need more of those, but I don't have more of those. So I'm gonna make a quick parts run or tool run. I'm gonna grab some under hoist stands so we can get the drive shaft chilling up kind of where it needs to go. We're not gonna be using this drive shaft. We're only gonna be using the viscous. And then I've been doing a lot of reading on drive shaft operating angles and all that. So I might pick up some tools to try to measure this out. Everyone online, all the professionals say you need a maximum of a 3-degree variance in drive shaft operating angles. So I know the T-case is obviously coming down at an angle, and then it goes into the viscous, and then comes out of the viscous and goes into the rear diff. So I'm not too familiar with that kind of stuff. Obviously, I want to get it as close as possible. But yeah, we do need to put the diff higher up. I'm gonna have to trim the rear of the subframe a little bit. We got a long ways to go. But let's go pick up some steel so we can do some welding if necessary, build some mounts for that rear diff, pick up the stands, and then I might grab a little tool to measure angle. Well, I decided to just do this the easy way. I'm not quite understanding the whole drive shaft angle position math. So what we have here is an exact diagram of my buddy's all-wheel drive Civic with the FCS kit. We have every degree of all of the parts. We're running the same exact parts, CRVT case, the wagon viscous, wagon rear diff, and I even decided to measure his rear axle angle. I know my diff's really low, so my angles are way off. And I know the axle angle doesn't necessarily matter, but I was just curious, just for fun. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna match all of his angles. His T-case is angled 4 degrees down. The front part of the driveline going to the viscous is at 2 degrees. The flange on the viscous is at 2 degrees. The rear driveline from the viscous to the diff is 3 degrees up. And then the flange on the diff is at 5 degrees. So it's kind of all over the place. From what I'm understanding online, being that this does have a viscous that does, I guess, eliminate the need to be exactly perfect. Please correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section below. But that is what I'm reading. Either way, we're just gonna match this because obviously FCS has done their homework and I don't feel like doing homework right now. I just wanna build the car. Here's my current game plan. This is the process I'm gonna go through to get the whole drivetrain built. Of course, the T-case is already mounted. We do have obviously a lot of play because we don't have any pitch stop mounts in there. So we can, if I care to make it 100% perfect, I can adjust the angle of this when we go to add the front and rear mounts for that. The next thing I'm gonna mount is the viscous. The viscous is gonna be mounted up with these plates here. Of course, my brake lines are still in the way, but it's gonna be mounted up with those guys. And I'm gonna try to mount the viscous directly in the center of the rear diff in the T-case. So I need to find the center point on the viscous and measure out how long. I think it was 84 inches from flange to flange. Of course, this is gonna have to go back just a tiny bit, but if it's within an inch or so of being dead center, I'm happy with that. So we're gonna get the viscous mounted. I don't feel like, I don't know, maybe that's solid enough. It doesn't feel very solid, so I'll probably end up building some plates to mount the viscous along with these guys, because of course we don't want that ripping out. And then the last thing I'm gonna do is go ahead and mount the rear diff. I'm curious on the angle. The other Civic rear diff was 5-degree angle. Now where's my little angle finder? And thankfully this is gonna be very easy because it's hard mounted on the stand. But our rear diff is currently 0 degrees. His is down 5. So like, whatever, we'll deal with that later. First thing is gonna be the viscous. Let's try to get it completely centered. I'm just gonna get it mounted for now. We can do the reinforcing later because I know the driveline is gonna take about a week to get built. As that's getting built, we can kind of go through and make everything beefy. We still gotta plate those and do all that fun stuff. Flange to flange, we're at 89.25. This is for the rear, supposed to be for the rear. This is front. Let's go and get everything unbolted. I do know the fluid is gonna leak out. So unbolt that, and then we can go ahead, toss this up in the car, get it completely centered, and just kind of slap some holes in it for now to get it held in place. That's all sealed up, nice and good to go. Now, let's go get the Harbor Freight Special. Also picked up a bunch of steel, 1/4 and 3/8, I wanna say, yeah. And then I got 2 of these under hoist stands. Been needing them for a while anyway, for other things, but to hold the viscous will be perfect. Pretty sick. Front, we are at, from flange to flange, 36 and 5/8. Rear, 36 and 3/4. Extremely, extremely close to being dead center. So we have the viscous mounted up exactly where it's gonna sit. Now we need to get the diff mounted or not mounted, but just sitting where it's gonna sit, take a few measurements, and we can run it and start getting some drive lines built. I'm just curious on our axle angle. So like I said, the other all-wheel drive Civic was a 5-degree. This one's at a 10-degree. So we got a ways to go. The diff does need to go up, I would say another 2 inches or so, because as of right now, it's quite a bit lower. We do need to do some light cutting on the rear here. I got a ton of metal so we can reinforce it later, but let's just make the cuts we need to make and go from there. All right, we got a nice solid chunk cut out of it. That should allow us, what, 2 inches, inch and a half to go back if need be. Also, the other day when we were mocking up, I was a little bit wrong on something. So the pinion is actually offset on this diff. If you can see, this rear mount is 100% center and the pinion is offset. You're supposed to not center the pinion with the car. You're gonna center the rear mount with the car and the pinion is gonna be offset. So if you guys see the rear drive shaft coming in at an angle, that is why. That's what I'm told you're supposed to do on these things. It's a little bit confusing, but apparently that's the way it should be done. So all I'm trying to do right now is get enough clearance for, of course, like ground clearance, get proper axle angles and proper axle clearance front to back. And I think this here should be plenty. So I'm just gonna shoot for that 5-degree angle on the rear axle. Anything more is plus, or I guess anything less is positive. That's right at 5 degrees right there. And I know the suspension is gonna compress a little bit, but keep in mind this thing is on coilovers, so it's not really gonna compress all that much. If the suspension compresses with the coilover setup, it's maybe 1/2 inch compared to the stock strut spring style, which compresses a few inches. It should be good there. I like that. Let's just go ahead and center it up. That rear mount right there is 100% center with the car, and that is definitely enough, or very, very close enough to get us some drive lines built. One thing that should help out quite a bit with getting these drive lines built is Speed Factory's 1310 conversion kit. Big shout out to Speed Factory for being willing to help out the build. I'm sure you guys know who Speed Factory is if you are into Hondas. So this is the Honda All Drive, like I said, 1310 U-joint drive shaft upgrade kit. Let's take a peek at it. Nice billet adapter. So we should have two of these adapters. Beautiful. They included a little thing on how it should go. So the quick layout: Speed Factory U-joint, custom belt drive shaft, the billet adapter plate, another U-joint, custom drive shaft, and the viscous is gonna sit right here. And then, like I said, custom drive shaft to another U-joint to the rear diff. Also, I am not smart sometimes, but this is mounted backwards. So before we get anything built, I'm just gonna go ahead and flip it around. That slip joint is supposed to be up front. OEM Wagovan drive shaft with slip joint goes into the front of the viscous. So I'm gonna go ahead, get that flipped around real quick, and then we can take some quick measurements of the overall drive shaft length that it needs to be and run in and get some stuff built. So the front overall 100% length, flange to flange, 34.5. The front is a little bit less picky than the rear because the front we have that couple inches of free play in the slip joint. So yeah, 34.5. I'm gonna write that down. The rear I think is gonna be a tiny bit shorter. The rear is actually 40 inches. Well, I guess that makes sense because we had to flip the viscous. So should we move the viscous or should we just run that as is? We would have a hole or 2 holes to fill in the body. I think I'm gonna go ahead and just move the viscous more center. Let's do it right the first time. I don't know if it really matters, but I think it does because I'm picky. Little OCD got the best of me. They're identical. Front 37 and 1/8, rear 37 and 1/8. All right, let's make a quick run in. The drive shaft shop is gonna need this factory slip joint off the CRV or the Wagovan driveline, so bring that with. And then, of course, all the Speed Factory parts as well. Pretty sure the, whatever axles, not drive shaft shop, the other brand of axles, I think they're coming today, so we can use those for mock-up. I do think they are gonna be needing to be extended just a little bit though. All of the parts were dropped off to go ahead and build the drive lines, and we came back to more parts. These guys should be the rear axles, and I highly doubt they're gonna be a bolt-in fit, but if they are somewhat close, we can modify from there. And these are the Insane Shafts brand. I finally remembered. They're really not all that much bigger than the CRV. I know the stub is quite a bit bigger, but the thing I'm most curious about is the splines. Will these splines fit right into the CRV hub? If that is the case, that's gonna be a massive help. And then overall length as well. Yeah, they definitely need to be extended, but it appears that might be the same. Hey, look at that. Fits right into the CRV hub. It's a perfect fit. So I'm curious, can we just find this exact axle a little bit longer? The CRV one is a little bit too short, so it's got to be like 3 inches longer total. So we don't really need to worry about rear axles until the diff is actually in the car, hard mounted with our nice little 5-degree angle that we're gonna put on the pinion. I did go ahead and cut out the subframe a little bit more. So now we have plenty of space. Of course, it's all gonna be reinforced when we're all said and done, but we need to just start mocking it up and building little mounts and brackets. I'm gonna do the same concept as I did with the engine mounts, is just get it sitting exactly where I want it. It's all gonna be fairly simple. Like, this is just gonna come off, there's gonna be a plate, and then that'll bolt to that beefy plate. And then same concept in the rear, it's gonna come straight down and just bolt right to the back of the diff. So the very top mount is gonna be extremely, extremely simple, because where the diff is mounting to the subframe, it is 100% perfect flat line. If we just put a plate up here, as you can see, I hope you can see underneath this car, it's a little dark, but with the diff height that we set, this is perfect. It's like it's meant to be swapped. So I'm gonna try to build the base of the mounts out of the 3/8. We'd have 1/4 and 3/8. Of course, 3/8 is gonna be a little bit beefier. Yeah, I'm excited. And then I'll probably go ahead and cap these guys off and then come down. But either way, let's cut a little piece of 3/8 up. So the top mounting plate is gonna be 3 inches wide by the exact length of this, because it's perfect, which is a foot. I wish I had a nice clean way to cut that, but you guys know I ain't got much tools here, so a cut-off wheel it is. I'm curious how much weight we're adding to this car. This piece alone's like a couple pounds, so we're probably adding a couple pounds overall, maybe 100. But let's go ahead and pop the diff out and then the subframe out so I can get that top piece tacked up. There's gonna be a lot of in and outs with the subframe today. All right, we got it perfectly centered up. A little overhang on the front so we can put a plate on the front side to box it in, and then the overhang on the rear for the actual diff mount. Tack that guy on. Let's slop her back in, drill some holes, make sure it fits, go from there. Get the fuck in there. There we go. Do you know where this goes? Put it in. Holy shit, you're intelligent. Wow, you're a mechanic.
What I say, I have a brain after all.
That's good for now. Yeah, you do, Haas.
Told ya.
You really do got a brain, don't you?
Told ya. Devin said I didn't have a brain.
Well, I didn't say you didn't have a brain, I just said you have a hollow hole through your head. Ow.
Before it even gets into the hole.
I always go to town before it gets in the hole. Let's see if this differential fits. Crusty little fucker. Hopefully my angle's right. I didn't really think about that when I welded the plate on, if I'm being honest. But everything's miraculous with this car, so it probably will be perfect. I guess I can adjust angle with the rear of it. What do you think? Pretty sick diff?
Sure.
So I just checked, and without even trying, I mean, I tried a little bit, but we let this settle down. She's at 5 degrees. Perfect. Come on, Bobby, just perfection.
Good job, Bob.
So now what we're gonna do is center up the diff, figure out exactly where we need the holes drilled. I'm gonna drill the holes for the top mount, and then we need to get this little stand thing out of here, and I can start working on the rear mount. I think the rear is gonna be easier than the top. Slapping a little pilot hole in first. And yeah, we need a 12 mil hole. So for the first time in history, a FK8 is gonna be hanging a rear diff by itself with no stand. apparent guesstimate measurements are spot on because we have bolts that bolt in. All right, we have a diff mounted up in the car. It's so weird that the pinion's offset from the viscous. It's just apparently how it should be. Now for the rear mount, I might just kind of do the same thing what I did with the front. I might cut this off and put a beefier plate on there, because if you look up in there, there's a bunch of holes and whatnot. It don't look very strong. So if I just make this cut from here to here, I can weld in a thicker plate and then just come straight down off of that. Go straight up off this. I think that would work fine. I don't know why it wouldn't. So as you guys saw, we reinforced the subframe with that top plate. Now we're just gonna come drop down off of that top plate to these guys here. That'll be welded on the top and on the inside and back here. And then I'll have, how do I want to do that backside to make it look nice? Maybe angle it? I think angling it might look better than just having it square. All right, I decided to just put a little 45-degree angle on that bottom, just to make it look a little bit cleaner. So let's go ahead and trace these boys on the plate and lop them out. Almost done with the rear. We're moving right along. Both plates are cut out. Plasma table would be so nice for this kind of stuff. Austin, my brother, has one, but kind of a far drive, so I'll just cut them out by hand. I am gonna go ahead and punch the holes in these plates before I weld them to the subframe. And I'm gonna fit them up better because we got a gap that we could easily take care of. There we go, perfect fit. So I got this long nose marker. I take it, go from the opposite side, and rotate around, shorter. There's number one. All right, these are the plates for the rear mount on the rear diff. All said and done, let's make sure they fit. The diff is fully mounted up in the car. There is our new axle angle. Axle angle is about 3 to 4 degrees. If we went any higher on the diff, we'd have to do some severe modifications to the subframe right here. We might already have to do a little bit. We'll see when we go to compress the suspension. I'm guessing with the new axles being a little bit thicker, we may have to do some mods there. So we'll figure that out when we actually get some axles in for the car. But I'm gonna go ahead and pull off the diff and subframe combo and go ahead and box everything in. So I'm gonna box side in there, do some reinforcing up in here and just kind of reinforce the whole subframe so it's nice and strong again. I don't think we probably won't have any problems just leaving it as is, but of course, when I go send this thing on the first launch, I don't want the diff chilling on the ground. And a couple hours later, our subframe is, I'm gonna call it complete. It does look a little bit silly. I may add in some sort of brace down or like a little hoop underneath the diff. I'll take a look at it when it's actually up in the car. I'm sure it'd be fine right now. This thing is pretty well braced up. As you guys can see, here's the rear mount. So she's pretty freaking beefy. I'm gonna go ahead and slap that up in the car again with the diff. Like I said, I might add a little hoop underneath, some sort of brace underneath. But the next thing I really need to focus on is getting our viscous actually mounted up in the car. Kind of crazy how when I started this project at the beginning of the video, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And a couple hours later, lo and behold, we got ourselves the subframe modified to fit the diff. Pretty crazy what happens when you put your mind to something. All right, so we got her lined up 100% square with the tunnel, 37 and an eighth from the T-case, 37 and an eighth from the diff. And let's go ahead and mark it up. So these are the nuts that are gonna be welded on the backside. I think we need 8. It's a big old hole that we're gonna have to drill, which kind of sucks, but it's gonna be welded and covered anyway. I'd rather have that than a viscous rip out. Try to do this thing right. Trying is the key word. Probably do like an 18 to 20 mil hole. Perfect, 19 point tree. Now the key here is to not drill through our carpet. I really don't want to pull the carpet for this. We did not drill the carpet. That's good. Just got all 8 holes drilled in the chassis. Now I'm gonna grab probably maybe like a 2-inch plate on right from this edge to the inside edge so we can get a nice beefy weld on her and make it very strong. But there's no way that's gonna happen tonight. I feel like I made really good progress on the car. Way more progress than I initially anticipated on making, so I'm very excited for that. Very pleased with how things are coming along. I feel like the whole build in general is moving a lot quicker than I thought it would. And I'm getting much further by myself than I thought I would. So stoked all around. Hope you guys enjoyed. Peace out, my friends, and I'll see you guys in the next one.